Chances are you can probably imagine ways in which the world that we live in now could be better, right? You can cast your imagination into the future and imagine an alternate version of the world that is different. Maybe there are conflicts that we have resolved, or problems that we have solved, or new innovations or inventions that we have created that make our lives better. Regardless of what your goals or visions or hopes for the future are, the reality is that we are going to be the ones that are responsible for building that future. And the challenge that we face today is that the way that human beings largely work together is broken, which is a shame because there are so many important things that we are trying to accomplish. And if we can figure out how to work together better, we'll have a better chance of realizing the kind of future that we all want to experience. Often when we find ourselves first in that situation of trying to achieve something important, naturally we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we need to cooperate and collaborate with other people. How do we do this experience well? If you've ever found yourself in a situation where you are leading a team of people, you're probably familiar with a lot of the metaphors that we commonly use to try to make sense of what it means to lead a team. These are some of the most popular ones. When you think about what is the best metaphor for running a team, some people will tell you that running a team is kind of like building a tool. I can go in my garage, I can put together a stick, I can put some metal on the end of it and kind of create a hammer, and then I've created a tool that I can use to accomplish a problem. Another metaphor that people commonly use is the idea that running a team is like an army, with the leader being kind of like a commander who gives orders to his soldiers and they go off to battle to achieve victory in a war, right? This is a metaphor that a lot of people use to make sense of what it means to run a team. Another metaphor is that a team is like a machine, kind of a more sophisticated version of a tool, but something that I can scientifically measure and optimize. So say I have like a tractor in my garage, right? I can figure out how to make that engine run faster. I can figure out how to make the parts and the pieces be more effective. I can measure things. I can take one piece out, put another piece in, and then see what difference that makes. This is a really common metaphor that a lot of people use today. My team is like a machine, and I want to have a well-oiled machine that's optimized for performance. Lastly, one of the most popular metaphors is this idea that a team is like a family, that we look after each other, that we have each other's back, that we care about what's going on in people's personal lives. For many people, having a team that feels like a family is something that they aspire to. All of these common metaphors have different pros and cons. By applying one of these metaphors, you will get some advantages. The metaphor will work in certain ways, but they also have disadvantages. For example, the metaphor of a machine, well, the reality is that people aren't machines. We don't work the same way that machines do. People need to sleep. People get burned out. It's possible to run a gear so fast that gear will explode, right? But if it's a machine, no big deal. I can just take another gear and put a new gear in there. But if you're running a team like a machine, is that what the decision that you're going to make is to run your machine so fast that people explode, right? Using this metaphor, it inclines people to start to view other human beings as disposable, as something that I can replace and easily put something else in its place to optimize for the goals that the machine has. We're familiar with what it feels like. And of course, this is one of the downsides of running an organization through that metaphor. There are also problems that we have when we talk about using the metaphor of a family, right? Again, the reality is that, well, as much as we like the people that we work with, they are not our family. I've never heard of a family that said, well, son, you didn't accomplish the goals that we had for doing your chores for the last 3 weeks, and so now you're gonna have to go find another family to live with. That's not how families work. There's also other weird family drama things that happen in these organizations as well. Many leaders like to feel like I'm a benevolent parent and I take care of these people who are sort of in my stewardship. That can be a nice feeling. But when you view your team through that lens, what you also do is you turn them into children. They have to come to you to ask for permission to solve a certain kind of problem. A lot of leaders like having a team that feels like a family, but don't like the way that all of their employees seem to be kind of incompetent. And they desire to have a team that feels more mature, that feels more capable of handling risk, of making decisions, of coming up with solutions, and being more autonomous. So a family is a helpful metaphor in some organizations, but it certainly has its downsides. So all of these different metaphors point to something that's your organization's culture, and culture is becoming a more and more crucial aspect to how you run your organization. In recent history, in fact, some of the biggest market value drops had nothing to do with the business model of these organizations, but largely to do with the cultural decisions that they were making, how they treat their own people, how they view and treat their customers. So you want to get this right, not simply because it's the right thing to do, but because it's going to help you be more successful. We are, after all, humans working to build the future. If we want to successfully realize that future, we need to start from a foundation of understanding how to work well together. So what is the best metaphor for running a team? Think about your team. What are they? Are they tools? No. Are they machines? No. Are these people your children? No, they're not. Okay? These people are people. And that's the metaphor that we should use when we think about how are we running a team. We should view that through the lens of we're working with a living thing, because that isn't a metaphor. It's just reality. We're having a relationship with another living thing. Well, the reason why many people use metaphors is because they're tangible, they're intuitive, and they help people understand what to do next. And it can be kind of unintuitive or new for many of us to understand what this means, to interact or have a relationship with a living thing. How should I think about that as I run my team? Think of it like the relationship between a horse and rider. These are two separate systems with their own aim, their own intelligence, their own intent. They are autonomous and separate from each other, but you can configure these two separate systems in such a way that they can work together for the betterment of the whole. They can achieve things that neither of them could accomplish without the other. When you start to adopt this kind of mindset of seeing your team as kind of a rider and another entity that you can have a relationship with, what can start to happen is a different mindset. You can start to see the ways in which you need each other. You aren't thinking of yourself as two separate systems. Your identities will kind of start to blend into each other. In a way, you'll start to see that I am playing a role in this more collective, emergent system. As you start to develop this mindset, you start to recognize how if I want to do what's in my self-interest, the most selfish thing I can do is not to take care of this part of myself, but to take care of this part of myself, the whole thing. I will thrive best when this whole thing thrives together, and that means taking care of the other people that are in my team also. It's kind of a paradoxical experience. The way that you take care of yourself the best is, in fact, by taking care of something that is outside of you. Okay? Stew on that for a little bit. This is part of what is a fundamental human experience. Many of us, as the leaders of our teams and our organizations, are in an experience where we have sort of looked out into the world and seen the possibility, the people who are out there, the people who could come and be a part of this vision that we're trying to realize. We kind of look out there and imagine that potential and possibility. Then, if we do this right, if we design this properly, we can realize an experience in which all of these people to come together and function together as a more unified whole. This is the vision of the ideal kind of team experience. Individual people playing a role in something that is bigger than themselves, and where your identity sort of starts to blend a little bit back and forth between who I am and what I'm a part of. And you sort of see those two things become intertwined in a way that can be very special and very powerful. This fundamental, basic aspect of the human experience. There's you, there's the systems that are outside of you, and then there's the way in which these things overlap. If you can learn how to navigate that overlap properly, that is the key to creating teams that have an emergent nature, that function as something that is bigger than just the sum of their parts. In lots of movies and films, you'll see this sort of experience in which somebody is walking through the woods and a mysterious creature kind of presents itself. And then there's always this moment in which that character carefully reaches out to see what could be possible if me and that other system were able to join forces, right? You see this experience in Harry Potter, with Harry Potter carefully reaching out to Buckbeak the Hippogriff, or Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon, reaching to Toothless the dragon. You also see this with The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. This kind of pattern is so important and so seemingly cosmic in scale that you even see this kind of thing happening on the roof of the Sistine Chapel between Adam and God. There's a basic human desire to reach out your hand to that world that is outside of you, to see what could be possible if we are able to figure out a way to work together. This pattern of encountering another system outside of yourself, that symbol of a human reaching out to another system, is what I call an Elkadeo. And that's the basic inspiration for where the Elkadeo way comes from. If you're a human and you are reaching out to see what could be possible in the world outside of you, there's a way to navigate that interaction. You don't want to scare off that animal, right? You don't want to scare that thing away. You don't want to dominate that other system and break it. If you're trying to tame a horse, you don't want to break a horse. You want to start a horse. You want to start something new. And that's what the Elkadeo way is all about. If you're new to the Elkadeo way, that's what the logo represents. In the center, you have the human hand, the human experience reaching out, right? That's kind of the shape that you can see of the human hand in the logo. And then in the negative space of the logo, you have the other system, the elk in the woods, the other system that one is contemplating what could be possible if these two things joined forces. And that's kind of represented in a kind of yin and yang symbol of the Elkadeo way. It's the human aspect and the outside other system learning to come together to create something that's bigger than what they could have been all on their own. That is what essentially the Elkadeo way is. First, it's a philosophy that helps you understand how to navigate that interaction of having two systems learn how to work together as one. But it's also a practice. It's something that you can do. If you think about the machine metaphor that we discussed earlier, right? Human beings aren't machines. If I am running a machine, it's possible for me to run it in such a way that I'm burning people out. The machine metaphor makes it easy to say, well, if somebody can't handle that role, that's fine, because there's a line of other people that I could just put into that role waiting to be burned out instead. This isn't a sustainable vision for the future. There's a better way for us to grow into the future that doesn't involve disposably burning through human beings. Instead, if you adopt a mindset where you see the way in which you and the team members that you are working with are essentially a part of the same thing, that are all working towards accomplishing the same vision, instead of just replacing human beings, what you can start to see is the ways in which different people play important roles. And you'll still recognize ways in which maybe somebody needs to grow, right? But instead of disposing of those people, what this will help you do is learn how to grow those people. Because growing somebody else means I grow too, right? If you start to have a perspective in which you are growing other human beings, well now, instead of a foundation that is zero sum, that eventually will burn itself out, you have a foundation that is growth based. You have a foundation of an organization that grows other people, and then they pull in other people too, and they grow as well. It's a self-sustaining solution designed to extend far into the future. So think about the world that we live in now. Think about the future version of the world that you would like to see. Regardless of what that looks like, regardless of what it is that you are trying to accomplish, the Elkadeo Way serves as a resource to help you understand how to manage those little interactions, how to work together as human beings so that you can more effectively realize those visions for the future that we all need together. I'm fundamentally an optimist about the future. I'm excited to see what kinds of things human beings are going to accomplish. But I also believe that in order to realize some of the most exciting things that we need to do together as human beings will require us as humans to learn how to work in such a way that we treat each other like humans, that we stop treating each other like machines, that we stop treating each other like tools, where we stop treating each other like children, but instead treat each other like human beings. As we move into the future, you will see more and more teams learning how to operate by treating each other like people. We're right at the beginning of this new transition. And so this channel is here to help you learn how to run your team following those patterns of the Elkadeo Way. So if you're interested in learning more, subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for future videos. Please leave me your questions in the comments and I'll try to answer those in future videos, and keep an eye out for our future live streams where we'll continue this discussion of learning how to transform the way that we work together. Okay, with that as an introduction, look forward to seeing you in the next video.